While the original 2001 Xbox console stood its ground in the Western gaming market, it struggled to gain a foothold on the island of Japan. In an effort to gather the Japanese market, Microsoft decided to look over some popular game studios and find someone who could create something to get some more attention for the Green X. They chose FromSoftware, who at the time were most known for their Armored Core series. Asked to not simply reiterate their previous series, they sought out to do something a little different. Gameplay more explosion-centric, kind of like a Hollywood action flick. You see, they saw that the Xbox was an American console, so they had the bright idea to make an American-themed product. Out popped Metal Wolf Chaos in 2004. A game about the President of the United States of America flying around a mecha suit named Metal Wolf, blowing up everything in sight to save the states from an evil usurper, Vice President Richard Hawk. This created an interesting mix of media between the East and the West. Producer Masanori Takeuchi noted in an interview, quote, "It is America as perceived by the Japanese. It's completely fictional, but at the time, it was our idea of this ideology of American culture and comic book heroes, and we pieced that together and it became the president piloting the mech. We think that when Japanese look at it that way, from the American point of view, it's almost like how they imagine a Japanese ninja, and sort of the same ideologies, the same kind of fantasy, so it goes two ways." End quote. Now, unfortunately, the North American release was canned. There was intention for it to be on store shelves by 2005, along with containing Xbox Live-supported multiplayer modes. However, fears over the game content caused this to be second thought. They had concern the game was maybe too American, to the point the satire might come across as offensive. That, along with being shortly after 9/11, there was a lot of concern about the amount of terrorism in this game. Finally, the 360 was slated to hit shelves also in 2005, which speculatively would result in low sales for any game released toward the end of console cycle for the original Xbox. FromSoftware seems to have very much misunderstood the standard mindset of good old patriots sitting around their Xboxes under the nation's glorious Star-Spangled Banner because certain communities had heard of the game. Maybe they'd gotten their hands on it via an expensive import or found a digital copy to emulate. The whole thing was actually dubbed in English, making it even easier to enjoy for citizens in the land of freedom. Fast forward to a decade and a half later, Devolver Digital worked out a deal to port this wonderful piece of Japanese-American fiction after seeing its cult following. August 6, 2019, Metal Wolf Chaos XD. Not only did this bring a previous Xbox region exclusive to the world market, but it also provided additional updates like 4K, widescreen, graphical and control upgrades, and a new save system. And that's how I played it. But before we get too deep into it, hi, I'm Empty. I'm a bit of a mech noob who decided to dedicate this YouTube channel to playing every mech game ever made and debriefing my thoughts, feelings, and opinions here. If you'd like to keep up with me, we always appreciate a hit on that subscription button, and if you want to see a video about every mech game that was on the original Xbox, you can find it in my pinned comment down below in the comment section. Since I live stateside and our country's Independence Day holiday, the 4th of July, is about to happen this weekend, I figured it'd be the best time of year to give Metal Wolf Chaos a go. Thanks, and have a good 4th of July.
To my beloved fellow Americans, good evening. This is an announcement.
This crazy story takes place in the near future, or I guess since the game is 20 years old, our time now? Except in a version of reality where a man named Michael Wilson, descendant of America's 28th President Woodrow Wilson, becomes number 47. The home of the brave has fallen into great civil and economic unrest over combined factors, like a rise in terrorist threats, the exhaustion of fossil fuels, mass unemployment, and large-scale immigration problems. This has prompted a large-scale coup d'etat led by Vice President Richard Hawk. The first mission begins as the usurped POTUS jets his secretly developed special mobile armored ops suit straight out of the White House into enemy military units occupying the South Lawn.
The people outside look really scary, Mr. President.
Now, the story is actually told in a couple of ways. Cutscenes are typically from the viewpoint of the Daily News Network, and come from the perspective of those on the side of the Vice President. These pieces of news coverage paint the President and his Metal Wolf mobile suit to be the bad guys. We also get the perspective of Michael Wilson as he makes his way through the missions, actually being the good guy, and communicating with his secretary Jody Crawford. While this is going on, we also get followed by a journalist named who's flying around in a DNN helicopter blaming us for all the things we're actually trying to fix in real time. After missions, we also get excerpts of a post-mortem biography written by the same journalist as he explains the true reality of each situation after the whole ordeal is over with. Okay, so what actually happens? Like I said, the story begins as we blast our way out of the White House. We take some hidden tunnels and escape the coup on Air Force One. After this, the play order of levels opens a handful at a time so we can kind of pick what happens first. We'll play through 14 levels in total regardless. First, we hit up the West Coast, California, San Francisco, specifically Chinatown. Here we regain a foothold in free-caged citizens. I guess the folks who embody the American spirit the most to be put behind bars like this are mostly scientists and rock stars for some reason. Anyways, we liberate Chinatown. There's a boss tank to fight and an armored building that needs to be taken out.
Slaughtering unresisting citizens.
Play it for me.
Yes, boss.
Are seeking volunteers to oppose the coup d'etat forces.
Before we pick a third mission, we get contacted by a group of rebels, a militia that is forming to oppose Richard's forces. They only briefly show up in-game, but get referred to several times. I picked the Alcatraz mission next. Here the former prison has been turned into a giant electromagnetic laser cannon, and we have to destroy it before it goes off. This is also our first encounter with the DNN journalist buzzing around us in that helicopter like an annoying fly. Continuing onward, we secure a bunch of bombs placed around Beverly Hills and also cause some damage to certain wealthy citizens who fund the VP's forces.
This place is pretty run down. Like a town in an old western.
Going slowly eastward, we have a Wild West shootout against 3 mobile armor assassins, that would be Shaq, Paul, and Randy. This is a pretty fun level. There should be more mecha cowboys, I think. Also, there's an achievement here if you shoot the bell in the church. Next, the Grand Canyon, where we make our way across cliff sides until fighting a helicopter. We fight a different helicopter in Houston, outside the NASA spaceship launch pad. Around this time, we'll also get prompted with a cinematic that shows our group, the Resistance, as it's called, has regained the entirety of the western states outright. Vice President Hawk and DNN News create a propaganda video showing Metal Wolf getting destroyed, and the Resistance sees it, thinks it's real, and kind of crumbles a little bit. The President of the United States of America isn't too concerned, only saying,
Jody, those that died are imposters.
After saving Chicago from a gas attack, the Commander-in-Chief makes it to Miami for some R&R. Or to blow up a totalitarian warship espousing martial law. After destroying the Casperatus Robo-Spider in New York City, a humiliated Hawk creates a new law to blackmail Michael's compatriots. A legal clause to execute essentially anyone that they've ever known if they're on the team of Metal Wolf.
Mr. President, why did you come to save us after we betrayed you?
Jody, I can't turn my back on a friend. And the reason is, I'm the President of the United States.
This turns into a hostage situation on Liberty Island where Michael goes to save Jody and the remnants of the Resistance even after they've abandoned him. The group, now restored, takes back the White House, which has been armored with turrets and renamed the Fight House, before one last final face-off with VP Hawk in Las Vegas. This is a multi-stage boss battle. First we destroy Dorsey the tank and Christina the helicopter for the second time, and then lay chase to Hawk through gunfire and slot machines. It's pretty cool.
That's pointless, Mr. President.
Nothing is pointless. And the reason is because I'm the president of the great United States of America.
Also, I lied about this being the final face-off because we do actually go further and blast up into space and have the actual finale in a space station. In true American media fashion, everything after this battle explodes, and then the restored President of the United States, Michael Wilson, gives a speech about how awesome freedom is. Credits roll. The story here isn't going to win any awards, but let's be honest, nobody's plugging into this game looking for a high-stakes tale or anything like that. We're here because we want to see a bunch of explosions while some guy shouts,
I'm the president of the United States of America.
Is the game funny? Yes. It's pretty well packed with referential quotes, cheesy one-liners, and even some pretty on-point cracks that I would have not expected the Japanese to be knowledgeable about, like when Michael states,
I'm on the move. I'll smash it faster than a Florida recount.
If you didn't get it already, the basic gameplay of this game is to move from place to place, blowing up everything in sight. With the exception of boss fights, missions typically present you with a handful of targets to use as aiming practice. You get the ambidextrous option to shoot a weapon in each hand and can carry up to 6 different guns. Besides the normal shooting, you'll also be able to jump into the air and slam yourself down or shoulder into objects while boosting. But don't boost too long though, because overheating will negatively affect your health bar. While destroying things, you'll not only get item drops sometimes, like resources for upgrades, new weapons, or power-ups, but will also slowly grow your blaze attack gauge. This is the big attack. You'll pull out every single one of your weapons at one time and fire them wildly while screaming a one-liner. Oh, and if you just want to hear more of the one-liners for no reason, the D-pad functions as an audio taunt machine. Besides the main objectives here, there's a few things that you can do on the side during each mission. Of course, extra resource collection or hunting for secret collectible pickups, but also rescuing prisoners of war. Depending on which caged citizens get rescued, you'll gain different things. Saving enough scientists actively makes your rare metal earn rate higher. Musicians unlock more soundtrack options, and a full POW number reflects a strong economy for higher overall currency gain. There's also energy pods to find, and for every 5 of those, you do gain an extra hit to your health bar. So kinda like the hearts in the Zelda games. Completing each level gives you a scored report card. After this, you'll typically want to take your earned items into the garage, where you can develop and manufacture new weapons. This is the upgrade path of the game. There's several types: machine guns, rocket, missile or grenade launchers, shotguns, snipers, flamethrowers, handguns, and even railguns. They can all be upgraded too. I believe every single one of these weapons has 6 tiers in total, though there are some secret weapons you'll have to seek out in missions. Also, different weapons can take on different damage types, such as live ammunition being physical damage bullets, or energy weapons being, energy, and so on. Some enemies will have a strength or weakness to certain damage types. Unfortunately, if you're a fan of the intricate and highly customizable garage of Armored Core that FromSoft is known for, that isn't exactly present here. You just get the weapon upgrade system. There's no mecha parts that are interchangeable. If you do complete missions on the Hell mode difficulty, you do unlock some extra skins for Metal Wolf, so there's that at least. There are several boss fights to take on. Some end cap the objective missions, and others are the entire mission itself. Some of these are really simple, like a more generic tank, or the, sit in one place to be shot at boat that's in Miami, but others have more in-depth mechanics like the big spider bot in NYC. That one has a special laser attack that is pretty much a one-hit kill if you land in its ray of fire, and in order to shut it down, you'll have to locate a battery facility and take that out first. In terms of difficulty or a filter boss, I didn't hit that point until nearly the end of the game on the Liberty Island mission. Part of my struggle with this is because I was using a poor loadout for the multi-phase mechanics of the boss, but also because I hadn't been investing in upgrades too much until that point. Also, the boss has a timer, so it wasn't so much that I was being shot too many times as much as I didn't pass the DPS check. This led me to needing to go back and farm previous levels to secure funding to develop and manufacture new weapon loadouts until I figured out which ones would actually work the best. And this did happen again during the space station finale during the final battle against VP Richard Hawk. In this case, it was more of a skill check and not a DPS check, and took me a few tries before I was able to make it to the end credits. Those one-hit kill lasers are brutal if you aren't good at dodging. Overall, the gameplay is pretty standard for the time period, pretty average. There's some minor lack of quality of life features, like no autosaves, but that sort of thing is to be expected playing a game that's over 20 years old now. To point out flaws, I'd say something more egregious is how boring the objectives are. Essentially every single target objective is to blow up a tower. The same tower in every mission. To make a generalization, the gameplay is probably really held up by the meme theme. As per visuals, they are about what you'd expect from a mid-2000s Xbox title. Fidelity doesn't really stand out even after the XD edition's upgrades. Not that I'm saying I don't think Devolver did anything, as much as they're likely all minor and not major reworks, things like resolution or texture scaling. Admittedly, I've never played the original version, though I imagine being on the OG Xbox meant it probably looked pretty similar, but likely more grainy and fuzzy and maybe had some FPS hiccups. Overall, I'd say it's a pretty standard take on the realism style from the time, though as most games from the time are, it is obviously dated. The environments were alright, some of the more cityscape levels blend together in my memory, but I suppose that's pretty on par for the course. The standouts I think are probably the historical locations themselves, like the White House and the Statue of Liberty, or maybe the maps with cool lighting. San Francisco's Chinatown, and especially Las Vegas, the latter being my favorite mission. You blast through all the casino machines as money and coins rain down along with bullets. You go through a few hallways to an, indoor shopping center and shoot through the lit up roof before chasing the boss out into a water feature for the final phase of the fight. Most of the enemy design is pretty minimal. Your targets are often some pretty boring looking watchtowers with whatever is level relevant taped onto the side of them. You shoulder through generic soldiers, jeeps, and so on, and as far as the character designs go, the mechs do take the show, however minimal. Michael and Richard's mobile armors have an extremely striking silhouette, especially when changing weapon or activating the burst attack. When doing either of these, every single weapon is pulled out of the back at the same time and gives them an over-the-top appearance of having illusionary wings made up of every single weapon in their arsenal. Also, I could be wrong, as I haven't played every Armored Core game yet, but the design seems to be a departure from that. It appears to me that the design language of Armored Core are typically more angular, with hard corners, hard lines, generally more blocky for lack of better term. Metal Wolf feels very round, on the other hand. Maybe this was inspired by Appleseed, what with the design choice being rounded and the dual head antenna.
The sound quality is terrible.
And the music in this game has no business being as good as it is. I don't know if the sound team got the memo that this was going to be a, joke game, but they went 110% in. Okay, maybe that is a little bit of an exaggeration. There are some more boring songs in there too. There's a few generic ditties that take on the militaristic action game theme. You've definitely heard this stuff before in games or movies. You know, the army guy song with rising action that inspires feelings of optimism, maybe with some horns or unmemorable electric guitars. Background music for battlefield loading screens. Past that though, Metal Wolf Chaos XD has some crazy variety. Some of this I don't even know how to describe. It's like noise rock radio, dissonant city techno jazz with noodling guitars, heavy grunge basses with terror industrial screeches. Sometimes it's a drum and bass song, or sometimes it goes into American guitar twangs. Particularly, I liked how the post-mission text segment Peter McDonald presents is overlaid with a folk guitar. The voice acting here is okay for what it is. It's meant to be cheesy and not so serious, so a lot of it is over the top and campy. Some people will like this, some will find it grating. I was pretty good with it until I started losing, and then my combined frustration of losing the boss battle and hearing Jody repeat made steam shoot out of my ears. Initially, when booting the game up, I was prompted with a pop-up. This game doesn't support integrated graphics cards. Now, this is sort of a weird problem that me and some others sometimes get, where a game decides to run off of the internal GPU instead of the gaming GPU. In order to fix this, you have to exit the game and go into your computer settings for graphics performance preferences and manually add the game in, and choose which graphics card you want it to play with. For some reason, this seems to be a recurring problem with Japanese games. I did have the same problem with Gundam Battle Operation 2 and also One Piece World Seeker, except in this instance I actually got a pop-up about it. The others I had to troubleshoot until I discovered what the problem was. Past that, I don't think I had any issues in terms of performance, though there is a collection of minor mishaps. I used a controller to play, but the cursor for mouse and keyboard stayed on the screen. Alt-tabbing would freak the game's resolution out. Loading screens would cut off parts of the images. It's apparent whenever you see the logo and can't read the full word out. Some sounds are mixed poorly, either being suddenly way too loud or way too quiet. The characters will talk to each other and it will sound like it's barely a whisper over the sounds of massive explosions. I mean, these are all relatively minor issues, but they are things that I'd hoped to see fixed in an upgraded port version of a game like this. A great game if you're somebody who's ever played the arcade racer Cruisin' USA and thought, wouldn't the level format of greatest hits of American monuments be so much cooler if we were robots blowing things up instead of race cars? Overall, this game is pretty average, but it's held up by its over-the-top and comedic theme. One of those. What it lacks, it makes up for in character experiences. Metal Wolf XD. The XD is the face you're supposed to make when you're playing it. And you know what? It is fun. At a short playtime of under 10 hours, I'd recommend any mecha fan pick this one up to play through at least once in their life, just to see how campy it is. However, if you're looking for some deeper gameplay and aren't a patriot of the good old USA, you can probably go ahead and pass on this one.